Hello and welcome to the show. I'm here on Forza Horizon 2 with the Ferrari F40, one of my favourite supercars of all time. This is certainly up towards the top of the list. It's a great looking car, great sounding car, and a very, very nice vehicle to drive. It is also a rather important piece of automotive engineering, if you like, because it is the first road-going sort of production supercar that broke the 200 mile an hour mark, which was quite a big deal, in all honesty. Now, this car gets to 200 miles an hour using, and I say this, a mere 478 horsepower, which, yes, for the time, I think this was the most expensive, most powerful and fastest Ferrari that they'd ever made when it was released. But 478 horsepower is not that much compared to a lot of modern supercars that you see around, but it still gets to the 200 mile an hour mark, which is pretty damn impressive, I have to say, for the Ferrari. But it did get me thinking. I was wondering, how little horsepower would it take to get a car to 200 miles an hour? And this one here does it with 478. Is there cars that I can use that will get there for a lot less? Now, I'm having to use the motorway, as I do for the city car builds, because the airfield is simply not long enough. Yes, I know this does go downhill. A little bit cheating, but I'm going to use that anyway, because there is nowhere that is long enough to actually get this Ferrari up to its top speed. It takes a long time to get to the 200. It gets to sort of 170 very quickly, and then it does struggle. After that, especially after the 190 mile an hour mark, it does struggle. Yes, it will go to 200. I think it went to 203 on that bit with a little bit of downhill. But yeah, I'm having to use the motorway because it's the only place that is long enough. There are, of course, the dangers of traffic and downhill a little bit on the cheaty side. But just nobody, you can't complain. Okay, there's nowhere else to do it. And it also started to rain, which always makes things interesting. So yeah, the Ferrari was the benchmark. First car that I opted to build up was a Toyota MR2. Now, I wasn't really quite sure what I was looking for to start with. I was just kind of flicking through the garage, having a look at cars, and trying to come up with something to use. I opted to use this one because the speed rating of it, while it was standard, was quite high. Forza gives all of the cars various ratings, and one of the categories is, of course, speed. And this had a fairly high speed rating despite not having too much power in it, which is good, which is exactly what you need for this. You want to have a car that can make the most of low amounts of power. Basically, it's kind of about aerodynamical efficiency, really. You want the most aerodynamical car possible, and I opted to have a go with this MR2 first. You will probably have noticed that it has a hideous body kit on. The reason that is there is because the parts reduce drag. As stupid as they look, and as much as I don't like them, is actually sort of needed to get the car to go at the hot, get a little bit more speed. We're not talking a huge amount, we're talking like half a mile an hour. But when you're trying to get a car to 200 miles an hour using as little horsepower as possible, every half a mile an hour helps with this. It really is quite a faff getting these cars to work. Once we get around the corner and start heading downhill, the MR2 very, very slowly picks up speed. Now this car that I am running has 406 horsepower. It's over 70 horsepower less than the Ferrari F40, yet it's hit the 200 mile an hour mark. Now there's no restrictions on anything else that I could do with the cars. I had race weight reduction. There we go, I can speak. We had race tyres on the car and various other race handling parts to make sure that it could deal with the road and any bumps that might come up, and if we needed to change the lane, etc., quite quickly. But it's the power that's the most important when it comes to the straight line speed or power and aerodynamics, if you like. So with just 406 horsepower, the MR2 got itself to 200, which I was quite impressed with, actually. I didn't expect the MR2 to be able to do that, and that's still using the standard engine. Now up next, this is an odd one. This is the odd one out of all of the cars that I used for this. Again, it was another one. I was just flicking through the auto show, having a look to see what there was, and this one jumped out at me. Again, giving good speed for not very much power. I think it's about 150 miles an hour with only 190 horsepower. It was something like that when it was standard. I can't exactly remember. I like this Civic Type R. Of all the Civics, this is probably my favourite generation of them, if you like. So yeah, I was more than happy to build this car up. Again, keeping the engine in this one completely standard. I mean, there's not really a huge amount of advantage in changing the engines in these cars because we're going for low power. We're not going for the absolute maximum power output from these vehicles. We're going for low power and getting them up to a certain speed. I did rear-wheel drive convert this to make it as nice as possible to drive to get it up to the speed. And the amount of power I put in this was 398 horsepower, so just a fraction less than the Toyota MR2. And despite me not really, I mean, it's not the, I wouldn't have called it the most aerodynamical of shapes, the Civic Type R, but it's at 201 miles an hour. It got to the 200 mile an hour mark with under 400 horsepower, which is that's not bad. That's not bad, and I'm not entirely sure why in particular this Civic is quite so quick. It's a complete mystery to me. I mean, it's nothing particular. I wouldn't have thought there's anything particularly special about the shape. I got to 203 going down the hill. I mean, I could probably got it to 200 with like 5 less horsepower, but the parts that go on the cars don't quite work like that. I can't take off very small numbers of horsepower. So yeah, 398 horsepower. That's not too bad. Now this is the shape that I was expecting, and this is the shape that you will see with the the remainder of the cars. It is the classic racing vehicles. The first one that I was going to have a go with was the Maserati 300S. See, to get as high speeds as I'm hoping to get with these cars, using low amounts of horsepower, we need a very aerodynamical vehicle. Now yes, modern vehicles will be a lot more aerodynamically efficient, or whatever it's called. But the problem is modern cars have big, powerful, at least the modern cars that get into Forza, have big, powerful engines, which are not so good for what I'm trying to do. You know, modern Ferraris, modern Lamborghinis, etc. May be far more aerodynamically efficient than other cars, but they start off with 600-700 horsepower, which is no good for me when I'm trying to do this. So I was having to resort to the classic race cars, if you like. Maybe not quite, they weren't designed in an ultra high-tech wind tunnel, these things, but they were designed for racing, and they are all very small, very low to the ground. So I was hoping that these would kind of fit the bill, if you like. This particular car, I was running at 390 horsepower, so you get fractionally less than the Civic. Still running with the standard engine. I can't remember if it was turbocharged or supercharged. It had some form of charging on the car. And again, we're going to get to a similar top speed. And this is what I'm wanting to do. I'm wanting to try and get it to 200 miles an hour and just to the 200 mile an hour mark, because then I know I've used as little horsepower as possible. Again, coming down the hill, we're just ticking over sort of to the 201 mile an hour mark, which wasn't too bad. Although, to be fair, I think this is more of a testament to the Civic than it is to the Maserati, that the Civic only took 8 more horsepower to get it to the same speed as this. It's a very pretty Maserati, much better looking than the Civic, but yeah, still, the Civic was a real surprise, actually, in all honesty, when it came to this challenge. Now, the next car that I was going to use, the Alfa 33. Now, I seem to remember we did a similar thing to this on Forza 4, low horsepower speed running stuff, and I think it came down to the Alfa 33 and the Lotus 11. It was something like that. It was ages ago. I doubt anybody will remember it. And I figured we'll give the Alfa 33 a go. Again, another very, very streamlined car, another very small, it is another blooming Alfa window wipe. What is it with the Alfa Romeo race cars and having just the most useless windscreen wipers? It's almost as bad as the TZ2 or whatever the damn thing's called. I don't know. The windscreen, they were rubbish with the designing of those things. Anyway, yes, this is another car that can get to high speeds with not an awful lot of power. I very much like the Alfa 33. It is my A-class car of choice. In fact, it's a stupidly quick A-class car that I have when it's built to A-class anyway. For this, I mean, they're running all sorts of race parts. I think most of these cars ended up in around S2 class, just somewhere there or thereabouts. In A-class, this is a fantastically good car to drive. Absolutely lovely handling, very, very quick, very good brakes, but it does struggle a bit with straight line speed. When you're restricting it to a class, of course, I'm not caring about the class. So now that I can put some power in, these things can go very, very quickly. If you max these out, I think these go towards the top of most of the speed trap times, certainly on the high speed stuff. Of course, on here, we're looking for using as little horsepower as possible. and I got away with using a mere 345 horsepower. That is all it took to get the Alfa 33, there we go, to the 200 mile an hour mark. I could not have used much less. I really couldn't have used much less in that car. That was seriously struggling to get up to that, but it did it with only 345 horsepower. That is not an awful lot of power, and that's still cracking the 200 mile an hour mark. We have another Maserati for you, the Birdcage. Again, this was another car that I looked at the statistics on, and it intrigued me, as yeah, it has very, very good sort of power to speed ratio. If that makes sense. It does still look like a bathtub from the back, though. It's such an odd car. It looks fantastic from the front, and the chassis is, of course, very, very cool. And then they just kind of gave up with the back of it. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, with such a good sort of power to speed ratio, I was expecting great things from this tiny Maserati. It's just sort of being in this car, it is quite ridiculous just how small and how a lot of your visibility is taken up with a humongous rear view. I say humongous rear view mirror. That's probably a normal size rear view mirror for any other car, but in this it looks silly. Anyway, by the time I came out of the tunnels, it was raining again. The weather really did have it in for me while doing this. It rained quite a few times. And sure enough, the Maserati was getting up to the 200 mile an hour mark. It's almost there, just a couple more. It's quite painstaking waiting for it to... There we go. 200 mile an hour mark, and this car was using 331 horsepower. We're going lower. Even less horsepower is needed. It's not a huge jump there, but that's pretty damn good going for the Maserati. Again, there is no way I can do anything more. I can't use any less power. As you can see, it's really struggling, and we're using as much gravity as possible to help us out with that particular one. Our second place car, if you like, is an odd one, and one that I wasn't expecting this. I mean, I wasn't really surprised by the Birdcage and the Alfa getting that sort of speed with that sort of power. When I was looking through the cars I had to use, I came across this and thought, well, I mean, it's sort of vaguely the right shape. It kind of looks like the other ones. It looks like it'll be quite aerodynamical. We'll give it a go. And this was designed as a rally car. I think I'm right in saying that, rather than as a circuit racing car, if you like. And it was really just sort of on and off chance that I chucked this car together. This is the only car that I swapped the engine out of. It's using the flat 4 from a Subaru Impreza, and it's putting out 300, and I've lost the page, where has it gone? 325 horsepower. There we go, that's what this car has. 325 horsepower is all it's got. I think it's a pretty standard engine, not many upgrades have gone into it. And there's the 200 mile an hour mark. I mean, I wasn't expecting... I was thinking maybe sort of under 400 this car would hit that speed. Didn't think we'd get away with such low power in this vehicle. I'm not sure why. It's very good aerodynamically. That's about all I can say. Yeah, there's even with this a slightly odd... That is the most aerodynamical front bumper option that I have on it. It doesn't look like it would be... Nah, I don't know, it confused me almost as much as the Civic. Not quite as much, though. Of course, it was kind of inevitable which car was going to be best for this, and it would be the Lotus 11. This is this strange and absolutely crazy contraption. I'm not sure, I'm presuming it was raced in something. I don't know quite where it was raced in, but it's a very odd vehicle. I think it's the lightest car you can get on Forza Horizon 2. This version I'm running weighs about £1,000, maybe sort of 10 or so over. It's a ridiculous vehicle. The standard car comes with 80 something horsepower and will do sort of 130 miles an hour. Most cars with 80 horsepower won't be doing 130 miles an hour. So when you start modifying this, again, keeping the same engine in this car, I got it to 244 horsepower. That's what it's running with at the moment, 244 horsepower. And as you can see, it is doing about the same as everything else. I like how much it leans. I didn't notice that when I was driving it. How much it leans around corners. This is running on race suspension. The cars were lowered as much as possible. I fiddled about with the setups to make sure I was getting every little bit of speed out of them that I could. A lot of tinkering with gear ratios, trying to make the most of it. These are perhaps running a little bit longer gear ratios just to make the most of the downhill section, so that they're not buzzing in the limiter. Yeah, as we come around, it's starting to go down the hill now. We're up to exactly the same speed as the rest of the cars. Firework display going off to the side. It's almost got it, 199 miles an hour, and there we go. 200 miles an hour in a car with 244 horsepower. That is about the minimum. I can't take any more out of this car. Nothing else I can do with it will make it go any quicker. I didn't think we'd get to that lower amount of horsepower. I thought we'd get under 400. I thought we may get to sort of around the 350 mark. That's ridiculous. To be able to go that fast with that little power in this car is quite incredible, really. It shows you how efficient this vehicle is at cutting through the air. That's pretty damn impressive, I have to say, from the Lotus. Yeah, and it's still a nice car to drive. Still a nice car to drive. And we've got a bit of a fireworks display going on in the background. Background, sure, whatever. So there we go. How much horsepower does it take to get to 200 miles an hour? Well, if you have a little Lotus that is very good at cutting through the air, you only need 244. I'm still quite surprised by how little you need. But there you go. That is it. I'm not sure what use this information will be to you, but I found it quite interesting. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.